Ideas. True story. Two people were sitting at a table next to me. I overheard one say with wonder and what appeared to be some envy, "How do you think of all of these ideas?" Without hesitation, the other person looked directly at his friend and replied, "How do you not?" So let me ask you, which side of that conversation are you on? My name is Pamela Induni, and I teach a product management course at Berkeley called Hacking the Product Development Lifecycle. In it, my students take an idea all the way through from concept to in market using the 6 phases of the product development lifecycle, or PDL for short. Now let me repeat that question. Which side of the idea equation are you on? For some, it seems like ideas simply manifest in their sleep. Yet how many people have ideas and never take action? In reality, most ideas never see the light of day. Sure, the person simply may not be driven, but more commonly, they simply didn't know where to begin. The result? Often regret. Regret for not moving forward is common, be it financial or even ego-based, that self-accomplishment regret. And I've been thinking about this concept a lot, especially with the huge challenges that we're facing in these current times. I believe that regret for self-accomplishment is insignificant if compared to how an unrealized big idea could benefit humanity. Now, I realize that not all ideas are big ideas, but one, even one unrealized big idea matters. And so do the smaller ideas. And what if you're on the other side of that conversation? What if you find yourself without ideas? Can you still play in this space? My answer, absolutely. In fact, I find the people that have passion or knowledge to be as imperative to the equation as those that have the ideas. So let's delve into this a bit deeper. It's really helpful to visualize 2 ends of a scale. Perhaps you're on the side of the scale with lots of ideas or even one big idea, but you're not moving forward. Let's put aside the notion that you may not be driven, because I don't believe that's the case in most instances. Perhaps you just can't do it on your own and don't know where to turn for help. You don't know how to start from scratch. Maybe you doubt that your idea has merit. Maybe you don't have the resources. Maybe you don't feel like you have enough knowledge or experience in the subject. So you never take action on your idea. And one of 2 outcomes typically happen. 1, you live with regret. Or 2, you live with fear. Your fear may be that someone else does it. My fear? Think of that unrealized big idea that could benefit mankind. My fear? That no one does it. Let's look at the other end of the scale. Maybe you don't have any ideas, but maybe you're really passionate or truly knowledgeable about a problem that exists. Maybe you have amazing skills, coding, marketing, engineering, legal, strategy. Maybe you're dying to be involved in a startup and all of the craziness that it entails. Maybe you have financial resources or connections to help someone that has an idea that you value. You might just be the connection that person needs to move forward. You could be their spark. And before I move on, I'm often asked, can I learn to have ideas? Can I get into that inventor's mindset? And my response to that is absolutely. Just start looking for problems that you see around you in your own daily living. Start looking for things that drive you crazy. My husband and I started our automotive tech company, spurred by the very simple problem our son had driving to school in a classic car with an inaccurate speedometer in a 25 mile per hour speed trap. Yes, The one thing I tell my Berkeley students over and over is always, always, always begin with the problem. And as I mentioned a bit ago, when talking about the huge challenges that we're facing in these current times, find opportunities in these moments of major disruption. So whether you're the idea person or whether you're the spark and you're ready to take the leap, where do you even begin? I immerse my students in an experiential, hands-on journey to take an idea from concept through to in-market. I think back to every job that I've had in my career, and in every single one of them, I was asked to take something from an idea to use, often with a "go make this happen" from upper management. Think about your own life. How many times have you been in this situation where you had to take an idea all the way from concept to reality? Maybe it was planning an event, choosing the right university to attend, deciding where to live, developing the next great gaming app, building a robotic system, deciding on a new haircut, or solving one of mankind's great challenges. I teach my students a methodology called the product development life cycle. This very simple methodology helps them figure out where to begin and how to move through the phases. And yes, there are defined phases. It works for all of those things I just rambled off: creating apps, planning events. My goal for my students, that they will make every decision in their life based by stepping it through the 6 phases in order. The 6 phases, and think of these in a never-ending circle. 1, requirements. 2, design. 3, development. 4, testing. 5, deploy. 6, finally, managing. And while each of these phases is extremely important, the most important to get right is the very first one: defining the requirements, doing your market research. Is my idea even pursuable? Has someone else already done it? If yes, can I do it better? What does my stakeholder want? If it's an idea for something you'll sell, how much are my customers willing to pay? Do I even have enough stakeholders or customers to justify it? Do I know where to connect with my potential customers so that I can do my research? You must do the market research to see if you have a viable idea or product and enough customers or stakeholders who want it, and in most cases, will pay for it. Your objective in your market research is to determine purpose, features, release criteria, and your timeline. Let me give you an example. I've recently been coaching a person who has an idea for an accessory to solve a problem he's had with his car. He is full of passion about this idea. Apparently, he's been talking about this forever. In fact, his wife said, and I quote, "You either need to do this or just stop talking about it forever." And then he spoke those all too common words: "But Pam, I simply don't know where to begin." We chatted about the product development life cycle, and I took him through the process. He seemed to understand. When setting up our next call, he noted that he was thrilled to show me a hand-built wooden prototype and a demo video. He literally started our phone conversation with, "And I have lined up 3 design firms and I want to make a choice within the next 60 days. Whoa, hold on a minute. Our conversation turned to how the prototype he designed meets his needs and would satisfy him, but he made no reference to reaching out to others to see if it met their needs or what they would recommend he add. And this is the beauty of the PDL. It keeps you from jumping ahead. Design? That's phase 2. He hadn't finished requirements. Of course, I always expect to hear, but if I reach out and ask people on forum or at an event or on some other social media platform. What if someone steals my idea? Side note here, if I had $1 for every time I heard someone say to me, but I don't want to talk about my idea, what if somebody steals it? Let's be very clear. First, an idea is not IP. It's not intellectual property. Second, if your idea is that simple to steal, it's probably going to get knocked off anyway. And do you really think that you're the only person in the entire world that has that problem? And therefore, that idea? Most people don't take action on their ideas because they simply don't know where to begin. Back to our example. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is to assume that you know what your customers want and jump right into design. I ask, how do you know what your stakeholders want? What you want may be very different from what the majority of your users will want. I can see on your video that you've already fallen in love with one of the features. We call that a puppy. What if that's only important to you? So tell me, who are your stakeholders? And in that discussion, we discovered that there was this entire group of potential customers that he wasn't even thinking about. You have to do the market research. You have to understand your stakeholders. You have to ask the questions. And you have to ask the right questions. And sometimes the customer doesn't even know what they want. During each week of my class, we focus on a different phase of the product development lifecycle. Each week includes a practical, hands-on exercise. During requirements week, we do a how to ask the right questions lab. The light bulb moment goes off somewhere around round 2. Let me demonstrate it to you here. If I said to you, I'd like you to paint this room I'm in, what questions would you ask me? You might ask me what color I wanted. And if I said, not blue, you might be smart enough to say green. If I said sure, and you went on to a different question, you might not know that what I really have in the back of my mind is a deep forest green. And if you were really good at asking questions, you might say, what type of paint would you like? And I would smile and say, aha, I'd like you to use a textured paint. And if you were really good at asking questions and realized that I was being tricky, you might say, do you want me to paint the ceiling green, the windows green, you green? And I would answer your questions with a smile and say, everything but the windows and me. You might ask me how much I want to pay and when I wanted it done. And I would say, no more than $500 US, and I would like it done in 2 weeks. And you would nod your head and think that you knew exactly what I wanted. You would come back to me in exactly 2 weeks carrying your huge cans of paint and say, I'm here to paint your room a forest green using textured paint and paint everything green except the windows and you. And for that, you'll pay me $500. Is that correct? And I would say, no, that's not correct. That's not what I asked you for at all. Here's where asking the right questions is so very important. I would say to you, my ask was, I'd like you to paint this room that I'm in. I didn't want you to physically paint the room. I wanted a portrait painted of my room. You must nail the requirements. You must know what your stakeholders want. And often they have no idea themselves. And when you're the customer, do you do a good job of defining the requirements? Do you always know what you want? So, how do you find out where your stakeholders are? Going back to the person who wants to bring a super cool accessory for his car to market, he knows exactly where to find them. He's on all of the forums with others who share his passion. He subscribes to the same magazines. He attends the same club events. If you don't know where they are, start doing the research. Maybe there's something similar out there that will give you insights. Or just maybe you find that person that didn't have the idea, but who shares your passion, is knowledgeable, has resources, is ready to jump in and help you. You might just find your spark on the other side of the idea equation. Now, about this time, many will begin to ask about getting funding, hiring people, giving out equity. Personally, I feel that you're still way too early in the game for that. Patience. I met this VC when I worked on the Watson team at IBM. So when I decided to co-found my company with my husband, as you can imagine, he was one of my first phone calls. I'm launching a startup. I need money, right? I was so energized on that call as I told him about our idea and how we would be able to go global and what our projected revenue would be and who should I hire first and all of the great big beliefs just about everybody thinks when they feel like they have an incredible idea. And he gave me one of the most important, best pieces of advice that I have ever received. Scale slowly, keep in control. Since that time, I've seen so many great startups implode because they lost sight of that. Of course, it's important to strategize and plan for the future, but I caution you to start small and scale as you grow. Now, notice I didn't say move slowly. It's okay to jump in and get experience. Rapid prototyping works. Too many companies wait for perfection before getting a product or app out the door. My husband and I bootstrapped our company on $30,000. That's all we ever invested into it. Okay, lots of our own free labor. As we made sales, we put that money right back into the company. We used contractors versus employees. Now, I'll admit, I got antsy and agreed to sell to a customer in Spain, and then the UK, and then to a business in Australia. And I quickly realized the additional, unnecessary level of complexity that I added to my early stage business. Scale slowly, stay in control. Now, I understand that model doesn't work for everyone, and funding and sales are entire discussions in themselves. For example, last month, one of my past students contacted me about an opportunity he had with his startup. He was doing market research and came across a complementary business. He contacted the owner, and the owner was so impressed. He said that maybe he'd like to invest in my student's company. Now, first of all, my student didn't ask any questions like, what do you mean invest? Be an angel investor? Buy me out? Give me $1,000 goodwill? He was simply so excited to hear those words that he didn't even delve into it. Honestly, I think he panicked as his mind raced thinking of equity and money. And on his call with me, he started out asking, and I kid you not, what should I offer him for equity if he does want to invest? Of course, I backed him way up. Let's start with, why would you even want to be in business with this person? My student's answer? Well, he has really good connections and could get us a lot of sales. So I said, perhaps a better strategy might be to start a partner program where you would sell your product to him at a discount, say 15% if that still protected your margins. He could then make a profit, 15% up front, add additional services onto it, etc. You would have yourself a sales force without having to manage your own during your early years, and you would not be giving up any of the equity in your company. Now, Is this always the best strategy? No. Is it a strategy? Yes. And it worked brilliantly for my company. Another element that I always talk about when people ask, where do I even begin? Is doing a beta or pilot program. I am a huge believer in these. Consider this. You've just done your market research to find out what people want. And yes, you can do it discreetly. In my husband and my case, we simply asked on a bunch of card forms, is anyone else's mechanical speedometer off? And if you could have a way to fix it permanently, would you want that? And how much would it be worth to you? We received responses from all over the world to that one simple question. It showed us, A, that others had the same problem, and B, it gave us insight into thought leaders in the community. We did some additional research into them on the forums, checked out LinkedIn, Google, Facebook, and chose 6 people in different regions of the US. We reached out privately with our idea, asked if they'd want to be a beta tester. We offered them a free product and the best customer support imaginable, had them sign an NDA, requested that they write testimonials if it met their needs, and they all accepted. They have been our very best salespeople. Never underestimate the power of referrals. So you've done your market research, you've built your prototype, you have your beta going, you're starting to delve into the marketing space a bit. Now what? Recently, I was at this exact spot with one of the startups that I was consulting for. The founders literally said to me, now what? I glanced at a slide I keep on my desk of the product development lifecycle. We could have talked about testing, or business licensing, or patents, or packaging, or press releases, or anything in any of the 6 phases. Now what? The answer would be both exciting because they're on their way and now know how to begin. And their answer is probably equally terrifying. Now what? Now they continue to do everything. Yet I felt confident that they would figure it out. Why? Remember my original question to you? These 2 founders balanced each other. They came from both sides of the idea equation. Thank you.